Live to tape. 5, 4. Is Jeff going to show up?
He'll come in.
Okay, so that mic's for him.
Over.
I turned it off, but it'll be on when he needs to
I
be
think
on.
we should call certain people over to have a conversation.
We can call people over. They're coming to the guest studio. Okay.
Yeah, we want to know. We want to have a couple people step in and use your mic for that.
Okay, that's as hot. Yours is going. All right, sick. All right, guys, it's just for fun. Just for funsies. All right, sick. All right, so hey, sound check.
Perfect time for the wind. Perfect.
Yeah, where's our foam muffs on there?
All right, let's go. All right, thanks everyone for showing up today. Where are we at? We're at Lake Casitas, Vibe, Ventura Independent Beer Enthusiasts. We've called it a lot of things over time. November Camp Out, Vibetoberfest. But we're meeting up to this weekend, and I thought, well, what's a better idea than just spending a bunch of money on a bunch of AV equipment, set it up, and hang out. So we're going to do a couple of these today. I'm calling these the Vibe Time Capsule series. These will be on YouTube eventually after I edit them. But I want to talk about at least 2 things today. For this one, we're going to talk about the history of Vibe, the history of Ventura Independent Beer Enthusiasts. So cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Yoink, yoink,
Thank
yoink. Thank you. So thank you guys for showing up. So who we have here, Andy, notable raconteur, member of many clubs. And we have Doug Mason. Doug, introduce yourself.
Doug Mason, not so much a raconteur.
Don't think so.
But a beer enthusiast for sure.
Grab that mic.
I'm going to go ahead and take this.
Take that one out. You can just, perfect. Thank you.
Doug Mason, longtime resident here at Ventura and one of the founding members of Vibe.
Excellent. Georgia
Flair, current president of Vibe.
Current president of Vibe.
Very recent. And short-time resident in Ventura, about 10 years. With Jason, my husband.
So I want to start this off with looking at, I found an article. So the original founder, Dan, couldn't make it this weekend, but there's an article in the Ventura County Star from 2009. And I reread it this weekend, and there's an interesting quote from it. Craft beers and their cycle of ebb and flow from popularity is a fickle tap and back again, riding a smooth pour. So like 2009 when beer was getting popular again. This is not news to the Ventura Independent Beer Enthusiasts. Yes, an official club who fills tables at Anacapa Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. I see this club getting big, said co-founder Dan Baker. Yeah. I thought that was very touching because I started home brewing a few years ago. It's been about 10 years now, 12 years now. And when I started, it was kind of a lone wolf situation. I bought some ingredients online, and I didn't know anyone else was home brewing. And I was in Santa Barbara, and I'm sorry to say the Santa Barbara club at the time wasn't very popular, wasn't very busy. So I got up and drove to Surf. Mm-hmm. And I showed up to buy ingredients, and then I met a few Vibe members.
Right.
And they said, you should come to the next meeting. I said, that sounds like a great idea. And that was 2011.
Perfect.
And so I find,
it began.
And I find that is an important story because I think homebrewing in general is a communal hobby. It's not a solo operation. There's many solo operators, but in general, you need to hang out with people to have a good time, have fun. So I think we just want to go back, and I think I would love to hear, Doug, just maybe the beginning of Vibe and the whole, Ventura homebrew scene.
I'll do my best to recollect.
Okay.
Maybe a little fuzzy in some of the
That's
details.
Fine. That's fine. I feel we get a few beers. Okay.
But I have been there from the beginning. I will say that I wasn't a part of the very initial germination of the seed of Vibe. That was Dan Baker and his wife Monica and Emily Thompson and Evan Waite and a couple of others that went down to the CHA Southern California Homebrew Festival at Lake Skinner in early 2007. Actually, the last one that was at Lake Skinner.
Yeah.
And we're homebrewing for years before then and just went to the festival for the first time and got really excited about the camaraderie and all the event itself. It's a great event and still goes on to this day. Came back and then just decided that, really needed to talk about forming a local homebrew club. And so then immediately after that, there was a small group of the rest of us that met at Dan's house for a couple of days on the weekends and sort of thought through the process of what we'd want to put together. And ultimately had our first meeting at Anacapa Brewing Company in June of 2007. And picking names, trying to come up with, a couple dozen
who was out there back
the
then.
time,
Yeah.
And but it was a great event. One of the things that we did talk about at the time, and it's reflected in the name, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't a club that was only exclusively for homebrewers, but so Ventura, independent beer enthusiasts, we wanted to make sure that people that just enjoyed beer in general or enjoyed craft beer or wanted to learn about it were also welcome to come to the meetings. And so it wasn't strictly only for home brewers, That was 2007. The very first fest that next year came up here to Lake Casitas, where we are right now today, and we made a pretty impressive showing. Built things out right away and did a great job.
And that's the best part. I remember Dan telling the story about going to Fest, and I think it was him coming back with his wife and a few people, and it's like, we have to do this next year. It was like, it wasn't a choice. It had to happen. It was almost a necessity. It was not a want. It was a need.
Right.
And then they crushed it. And that's awesome.
There's so much history for Vibe here at Lake Casitas.
Yeah.
Actually, so this is sort of the first time I'm hearing this. Mm-hmm. So the first time you attended AHA, or the Southern California Homebrewers Conference, here at Lake Casitas.
I'm wearing the shirt.
You're wearing the
Oh my
shirt.
God,
the
same
08
shirt.
shirt.
From 2008. Yeah.
And for a few years. So how many years
It was here until 12, I believe.
13.
13. Yeah, that's
13.
right. It was here
13.
until 13.
We got kicked out.
Yeah.
There's some legal issues that we worked on.
And then there was basically a dead year, and then went down to Vale Lake after that, which is where it still survives.
It had been at Vale Lake previously.
Right. It was at Vale before it went to Skinner, and before it came to Casitas, so it's floated around a few different places.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, we've done, I want to say, Vibe has done, we've done 8-10 campouts. We've been here like almost every year since we started.
Yep.
Right? We've been here for a long time,
Yes.
not just Fest, right?
Yep.
So that's cool. So I think, home brewing, you look at when Vibe started, you had that time over the recession where people were getting into brewing, and there was a big upsurge in brewing, and I think Vibe kind of, for better or for worse, kind of rode that wave a bit.
Yeah.
And then I started homebrewing and then realized I wanted to learn more. And like I said, I think homebrewing is mostly the fact you interact with people and hang out and learn, right?
Yeah,
Share
you
your
learn
craft.
from other
Share your
people.
craft.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
actually make a batch of beer you
make
like
a batch of beer
enjoy,
and then
you want to share it.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And so when I joined, I said I joined the shop, which again,
Right.
Surf was able to do a shop, which was awesome because you had a good resource
So
and
awesome.
and had a place to go and ask questions and stuff. But then I started going to meetings and I realized here's something I've done, obviously I was helping run the club for a few years. Clubs can come in all shapes, sizes, and flavors. And what I like about Vibe, and I think it still exists today, is that Vibe is a very casual club, but takes its craft seriously.
Pretty seriously. Yeah.
And you could be a drinking club, just a hangout club, or you can also just be a, so for lack of a better, like militaristic, authoritarian reality.
No names.
We're not naming names. This is not a shit pod. We're not shitting on anyone.
It's just a different culture.
It's a different culture.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
different cultural difference.
So we struck a nice balance.
So I think I think we still strike a nice balance. I think that's
so
why
too.
we have as many members as we have today.
Right.
And I found that in the meetings, every meeting was very cool, right? Everyone's cool, sharing beers. Hey,
Right.
you might have a problem with your beer or this or that.
Yeah, you get some constructive criticism.
exactly.
And learn something.
Yeah. So I think what we had done at Surf was really cool because we kind of slowly grew the club over time as people joined up and we did projects and we did the barrels and went to Fest and then we started pouring at events. And so, I'm just trying to think, I think one of my favorite events, and I think you guys are going to do the Ventura Beer Experience.
Absolutely.
We've been so much that.
Yes.
What do you guys think
we
about
have
that?
such a history at Ventura Beer
Yeah.
Experience. Even
Yeah.
I think before I was a fledgling member of the club at that point in time because we still had a son. But how long have we been participating in Ventura Beer Experience? Since the inception, maybe?
I think the beginning of it,
I think
probably.
so.
6 years or
6,
so.
7
Yeah.
years, because they do 2 a year, so
Yeah.
it's like you think it's twice
Yeah.
as much time,
Yep,
but
yep,
they
right.
do 2. They were doing 2 a
it's a
year
great
back in
event.
the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great non-profit event
Yeah.
that benefits. So that's Jeff Linder, right?
Jeff Linder, yep, yeah, and then
He-
Al Trevisian, Two Trees,
And Al,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
Al's always there. Also a
Shout out Al.
member of Vibe. Shout out to Al,
out Al.
They're in
absolutely.
Arroyo Verde
One
Park.
of the original members.
Right.
Yeah.
And a beautiful venue. Always.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
very
Vibe always
quiet,
gets an
cool,
invite.
few $100,
Yeah.
few hundred people,
Yep.
donation, just a nice share.
Yeah,
it's
really
great
nice
fun. Get
place
some
to
food.
share.
Yeah. So I think, and as over time I, encourage people to do more projects, so we'll talk in a different video about the sour beers we've made and barrel aged stuff, and then, really getting into Homebrew Fest. And what I found for me was we were growing the club and people were making better and better beer, but then I started working for CHA, started doing CHA stuff. And I just was, it feels cavalier, maybe, trite to say, but it's like all my beer knowledge came from going to these meetings, right? Talking to people,
Heard.
sharing beers, just working it. And so maybe a meeting could be a little tough or nothing happens or 5 people show up, but then you have meetings where like 30 people show
Yeah.
up and you
Very
have like
next
18
meeting.
beers.
Yeah.
Like the board is nuts, and right in these talks we talk about water, we talk about hops, talk about sour stuff. But I also knew, as we were growing, and I'm like, well, I'm doing other stuff, and so we had never had. I always ribbed Dan about this is that we never had an election. Dan just called me up one day and said, "Hey, Andy, could you be the president now?" I'm like,
he was getting a little tired of it. It had been several
Dan
years.
had been around. Yeah, Dan had been doing it for a long time, and he was doing a great job. But he wanted someone else, so I said, "Yeah." So we did that, and we did. Actually, I think I want to talk about. I think you guys are both around when we did the off-flavor classes.
Sure.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And
Those
so,
were great.
So we did. We bought the kits from ASBC, the American Society of Brewing Chemists, or from BJCP does them too. And rather than tell you what you're tasting, I would present all the beers blind, and then you had to figure out what was the off flavors and not.
I think we used just Coors Golden
We used,
original.
the banquet.
The banquet.
Strictly the banquet.
Use
Hey,
the banquet
Coors,
as the
sponsors, let's talk. But yeah, Coors Banquet is a great base beer
Yeah.
for doing the off flavors. And so we did that, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
It was. It was great.
Yeah.
You know what was really fun about it, though, if I can say, is
Yeah.
this is sort of the spirit or the culture of Vibe, just like the group brews. It's like the members of the club start having a conversation at a meeting, and before you know it, we're talking about, hey, Andy, can you get us an off-flavor kit? And in 2 months, we're going to have an off-flavor class. Or, we're talking about a barrel aging or brewing a beer, and before you know it, 6 or 7 members of the club are talking to Surf
pitching
and
in,
asking,
right.
pitching in, brewing beers, and just running this experiment. And it's always just so organic with Vibe, which is what I love.
Yeah.
There's no sort of limits or places that you can't go. If a group of people in the club start to jive on an idea or
Certain
want
things
to do
take off,
something,
yeah.
it takes
Yeah.
off on its own. They bring that information or knowledge back to the club, and then we're all learning a little bit through tasting and the process. And so those are the things that I love about Vibe. So there was the off-tasting class, a couple of barrels at that time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we had just started kind of getting a little taste of the barrel projects. Yeah.
We'll talk about that again a little later.
Yeah, a
But
little bit.
We
Next
started
one,
a
next,
barrel
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
early
yeah.
on, 2008.
Well, I
we
was,
got it.
maybe we'll touch on it. I mean, I think it's a very
sure.
important part of Vibe. It's been our barrel
Absolutely.
program, right? We've had
Absolutely.
barrels. We started with the was not Flanders. I don't it was
So-
sour
so-
porter. What was
no,
that?
it
What was that
wasn't
barrel?
even sour. So our very first barrel was a barrel that I picked up from Justin Vineyards.
Okay.
And it was a white wine Viognier barrel that had gone through the red wine program, but got it right after it had Viognier in it. And it was actually for the beauty contest for the next CHA festival.
Okay,
It was here.
for the bragging rights.
Right,
Yep.
and it was and all it was they tend to do generic high altitude sort of
Yeah,
of
like
competitions.
wheat
Right.
beers.
So it was porter.
Yeah.
Robust porter or something. That was it.
Robust porter, yes. Yeah,
And so we
yeah.
decided, okay, we got 40 clubs. There's going to be a lot of porters, so let's do something in a barrel. So we didn't sour it up. We didn't do anything crazy. We just, picked up this white wine barrel, actually, which is a little different for a
porter,
robust porter,
yeah.
and did a club brew, put it in there, and then that next fest, we, entered that into the competition. We didn't win.
Yeah.
But it was a good beer. It was an interesting beer to have a robust porter with this white wine sort of character
That's
to it.
cool. That's badass.
Ultimately,
Yeah,
that
it
barrel ended up, we ended up souring that, went through a whole life with Flanders Red and several other styles, and I actually still have the barrel in my garage.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. You sell that barrel. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Is there
2008.
anything in it?
There might be.
We're gonna find out. So
It's pretty sour by now,
But
but,
it-
it's
that's-
still there, yeah.
that's where I like, the whole thing of the club is like Georgia said, like organic group projects, 8, 10 people. Maybe clubs come in all these shapes and sizes. Being 5 people, 30 people, 100
Right.
people, right? But everyone's always like cool to do something, participate.
Yeah.
As long as you feel like you're gonna get something out of it, then it makes sense.
Exactly.
And
so-
certain ideas take off, and maybe others don't. They die on the vine.
They
but
die
that's
on the vine.
okay,
That's
you
it,
know?
and that's fine. Exactly. So I think I did more club stuff and growing the club, and I think we brought a good membership base. I want to do other things. One thing I've also thought a lot about, because I help run the Southern California Homebrewers Festival. You can always be like, you put too much energy into stuff. There's time, and also because it was this kind of, I'm not saying dictatorship, but what do they call it? A benevolent dictator, where there's only one person making all decisions. I thought that was getting a little too much for the club, the size of Vibe. So I asked Georgia. I said, Georgia, would you mind being the president now?
That was also at a camp out.
That was also
as
at a
I
camp- that was
recall.
also at a camp out,
Also,
yeah.
our Oktoberfest camp
So
out.
there may
we
have been
were.
beer involved. So you may have.
I remember
Your
I was just
decision may have been swayed.
influenced by
just
my
cruising through the campsite, and Andy and James actually. Hey, Georgia.
Hey there,
And
Jude.
before you know it, I was presented with this monumental idea, and was mostly shocked. And was like, sure, and walked away and didn't really know how else that was going to go, to be fair. And then before you knew it, I just jumped on the bandwagon because I felt like that was, I mean, if someone calls upon you in your social club, you step up.
And
you do your thing.
And you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
You truly are.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder how much other clubs spend time at their community breweries, because
Right.
we rotate through all the community breweries for meetings. And we don't have like a clubhouse like
Right.
Yeah.
some of the clubs, you know, have a clubhouse and they all go. And so we really participate so much in the community. We've had barrels, obviously, Doug,
Right.
when you own Surf. So our exposure to some of the professional brewers in the community, they've been so accepting of Vibe
It has
Yeah.
been really
projects and barrels and come on over and brew.
And it's interesting. And I'd love to talk about this a little more. Is
Yeah.
the rise of Vibe? Let's just say, to be clear, like I think we can say something about Vibe as growing as a club and winning awards and things
I think
like
it's
that.
an influential club.
It's an influential club. I think that's a fair, I think it's an objective, not a subjective statement. But what I see at the same time was the rise of Ventura County beer, commercial
Right.
beer, right?
For
There's a similar
fact. Yeah.
kind of growth and
Which
not
actually makes
meteoric,
sense. It
but
makes
you know,
sense, you know.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't have a ton of members that abandon their well-paying six-figure job and jumped into brewing, but we have members that bartend, work at breweries, do a swing shift,
Yep.
whatever. They're always around.
In the business in
they're
some way,
They're
yeah.
not in the alcohol business,
Right.
which I think is cool. I mean, the best example I have is Paul Ray.
Yes.
Paul was very early on in the club, but he was at Telegraph, RIP Telegraph.
Yes.
He was at Telegraph Brewing in Santa Barbara, and we'll talk about the sour barrels in a little bit, but he got those barrels. But then Paul, left Southern California, went up to Portland, worked at some breweries. Now he's at Wolves and People now, but he's still in the brewing industry. But I mean, Paul was so influential at the beginning of those projects and being those things, and so there's been those stories of people
For
moving
fact.
on. I mean, the best one. I mean, if we're gonna really talk about the best opportunity, is Jason
Has to be
Thompson.
Jason, yeah.
Jason
Shout out to
Thompson,
Jason,
shout out
yeah.
to Jason, Calusa Brewing, blow us up. But Jason going from showing up to a meeting. I don't remember what year he showed up, but must have been like
What year,
Right,
Jeff?
2011 maybe?
11, 12.
11 or 12, maybe.
Thompson.
Here, Jeff, come on over.
Get a
Grab
mic,
the
dude.
We
Dude, the
got you
mic's
set
hot.
up
Go
right
for it. Go
here,
crazy.
yeah.
Go nuts.
Bring a chair if you'd like.
Go, yeah.
We're
Got
waiting
super
for
heavy coming in the chat.
Super heavy. Stepping in.
Thompson showing up, homebrewing, but then within a few years, getting asked by his buddies to just start a brewery in Florida.
I know, that was
out of never. Yeah, you can
There
definitely
you
sit on that. That's weight tested. I've tested that weight very much. You're good. You can sit on that for sure. Yes.
He's fallen on it
It's
before.
been load. It's a load bearing. It's a load bearing cooler. It's fine. But it's so amazing that the skills he brought on, the skill set he brought on, and then just did it, and he's cooking.
Yeah,
He's
Great.
doing
Cooking.
great back
And he's
there,
killing
so,
it.
yeah.
He's killing
He
it.
is.
Yeah.
Bring
We'll
back the
introduce.
beers,
Let's
killer.
introduce super heavy Jeff, Jason, Jeff Campbell.
Heavy
But I think
Jason.
the data point I didn't know, and Georgia brought this up, was oldest, still existing.
Oldest still existing member, I think, right? Except for you and Jason and Wendell. Wendell, that are still active members of the club. We pulled you in because you may have history.
Yeah. Actually,
You got any juice? Yeah. What's the juice for us?
Wendell started at the same time as me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you and James were a couple months before me.
Okay.
Basically, Surf brought in a lot of people.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Well, we had a great venue to be able to actually
Yeah.
conglomerate.
Yeah.
I didn't know about it until I ran into James at a liquor store. It was
Right.
like,
We told this. We were talking this last night. You found each other at a nightly
crazy.
nightly spirits or whatever down the street from Surf. Yeah.
He's seen the beer I was buying, and he's all, "Do you like homebrew?" I'm like, "Yeah, homebrew." And at that time, I was going to the Falcons. He's all, "Well, there's a little club meeting around the corner at Surf, the new brewery that just opened. You want to come over?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Check
Nice.
it out." Came in, met Dan, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
You guys are my family now.
I actually have photos of Vibe meetings in the brewery when we were under construction still.
Wow.
Building
yeah.
out, and the walls are stripped,
Yep.
and construction and gear all over the place, because as soon as we had the space, we started. bringing
So
it forward.
that's when you guys started, because Jason and
2010,
I
yeah.
moved here in
2009. We were building out.
2010, and there were no breweries in town.
Yeah.
And we saw Surf. Jason scoped it out via Facebook or something, and we were like knocking on the door, looking.
And you're coming
at
from Portland, where
we
there's
came
like
from
a ton
Portland,
of breweries. Like,
and
there's
we
a
were
brewery,
like,
you
"Oh
throw
my
you throw a
God!"
rock, there's a brewery, right?
We were
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do? There's no breweries down here." And Jason was already brewing. I wasn't actively brewing at that time until my son got a little older, but. We were looking in your window, and one day the door, we came back again because we were out here for a funeral at the time, fell in love with Ventura, was sort of looking at it as our next spot, and the second time we went, the door was open, and so Jason, of course, walks on in. Right. We meet Chaz, and he says they're getting ready to open, and honestly, Chaz, to this day,
still a game day player. Still a game day player.
He still supports our cause.
Super
So
supports Vibe. I mean, he just was our Belgian brew competition host and brewed the Vibe beer.
Crap, I'm forgetting the name. Vibe. What do we call it?
Vibe's going wild.
Vibe going wild. That's right. The Vibe wild sour, wild beer and Belgian beer competition.
Wild and Belgian, and we're talking about maybe expanding that this year.
Maybe German lagers.
Yes,
maybe strictly,
we're just saying,
maybe strictly Godsrickies. I don't know. Maybe we only do smoked lagers.
Yeah, we're thinking like no IPA.
Maybe no IPAs.
That might be what we call the competition.
Finally, we have a small audience behind us. Finally, the chatterboxes want to talk about what we're saying. Oh, they don't want to talk about smoked lagers. Well, this is now a smoked lager podcast. No, I'm kidding. No one cares about smoked lagers. But
and then really listen since then. So there's what 7, 8. How many breweries right now? Just in
7 or 8 in the
like
city.
Ventura City,
like
yeah.
10, technically speaking. There's some contract brewers,
Yeah,
small props
yeah.
going on, right?
So all that in the
10
last 10
city.
years, really.
Oh, no, it's
crazy.
been a crazy explosion.
Yeah.
You know, when we opened up, Anacapa had been open for a long time. It was basically a brew pub, so
Right.
there wasn't a packaged commercial brewery.
Downtown.
And when we opened up, we were, really the first commercial packaging brewery in Ventura County since I think like the late 1890s or something like that. There might have been something earlier. Shields opened up for a while, but they never really packaged.
Right,
And then in the 7, 8, 10 years that followed, the entire county exploded.
Yeah, and a
24,
different
25,
business plan too, Doug. Really not like downtown touristy. More of what I get from Portland, which is your industrial
go to the
area.
concrete tilt
Yeah,
ups,
roll up the garage, and it's not really about how it looks. It's about what's on the inside.
Right.
What
What's so
beer it
interesting, talking to Doug and talking to the guys that started Surf. Surf was originally just going to be a packaging brewery, sell it out the back door, but they were like, let's build a tasting room. That kind of. My understanding was that kind of came later, but
it was. We always intended to have a tasting room, and and originally we were looking in the downtown area.
Okay.
But at that time in Ventura, they hadn't had a brewery before. They were a little afraid of it, and so they were trying to force us to have a full restaurant component. You need to have a restaurant component.
The city.
So the city was like, "Oh my gosh, a brewery, is that going to stink? Is it going to make a lot of noise?" They didn't know what it was.
Right.
And so we actually ended up going away from the concept. We actually did develop a restaurant element, menus and everything at some point, and considered we were looking at places downtown, and then gave up on that, and then went out to the industrial area, lower cost per square foot, and
concentrate on beer.
Way more sense.
Yeah.
And at that time also, tasting rooms in breweries were typically really small. These little things where you'd go in and sit on a keg and get some beer to go, and that was it.
Sure.
So going sort of a large tasting room was kind of different for that time. So anyways, I'm not
with
here
the
to
tanks in
promote
the
Surf.
back, and
Yeah.
you were really, you could be drinking a beer and
Shop
feel
for
the
homebrew.
beer brewing, and you could smell the beer brewing, and
Well, and from the beginning, because of my involvement with Vibe, the homebrew shop was always going to be an element of the business model, and it was
So
symbiotic because
I think that was so fundamental.
Well, and nowadays, to open an actual brick and mortar homebrew shop where that's all you're doing is very difficult. You're competing with the big guys online, all that is hard. But it didn't matter for us because it was just a portion of our tasting room, and it was what self-respecting homebrewers is going to come in and buy ingredients without going to get a beer when you can shop for it. So we sold a lot of beer. So there was this great relationship.
Right?
Yeah, it was, and then we also, because we had bulk grain, so we could sell great prices on stuff, and we generally met the online guys' prices.
Yeah, once your overheads come down a bit because you don't have to pay for the space because you're just a homebrew shop, right?
Yeah,
you're already good, right?
And vibe was key. If we didn't have vibe,
we were doing pallet sales, we're doing bulk buys.
It was great, and so we're always eager to bring him back in. And when you were talking about Chaz, great guy, Chaz Cloud, our original home brewer, head brewer there at Surf, and he was supportive of the club as well, and would do what he could to give advice, and it was great. It was
oh my gosh,
great
he
setup.
still does that. Chaz could talk brewing for days.
Yeah.
And he can he's just so down to earth, and it's like you're talking to another home brewer. I mean, not he's very approachable
the level of chill,
and still exciting.
I think Jason has that a bit, where it's very like, I'm not like been a brewer professional, like I came from somewhere else and something like that. And I'm sure I don't know Chaz that well, but I would imagine he maybe done some classes and stuff, but he doesn't come off as this just I'm the professional. I know what I'm doing kind of guy, right? He's very cool, and he's always been good.
He came to us from BJ's.
He came from BJ's. Okay, so from the school of BJ's. Cool, Jeff.
I thought he was up in Santa Barbara for a little while too.
I think he was as well.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah. So I think maybe we're wrap it up a little bit, but I'm just thinking about. Georgia, maybe ask you, like, okay, so you've seen it, you've been around. Where do you think going forward, vibe, where we're, I know we're taping this post-COVID, we're going to get finally back out in the world.
For a fact, yes.
And so getting out stuff. And maybe we'll throw it to Jeff eventually because we got to let Jeff try to stumble. He's always so, we had to really work him to get on the pod here. So, but as to Georgia, as someone, vibe is a huge part of my life. This has been a huge growth element for me. The people I meet, some of my best friends. My right hand man, James. James is in Hawaii. Shout out James. Why the fuck you here right now, dude?
I know. What the hell?
But hey, you
we
gotta
all
go
feel
to
that
Hawaii.
way.
You go to Hawaii. You go to Hawaii. But some of my favorite people. Well, where do you see? We'll get past all this stuff. We'll go forward. Where do you see vibe? What are we thinking? What do we want to do?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I don't think I had heard what Dan said that day on the VC Star, but when you just said to start this podcast, I think this has the potential to be huge.
Yeah.
That I still feel that.
Yes.
And maybe for him this is huge. I don't know what he was thinking back then, but I still think the potential for Vibe is to be huge. And things have changed, right? So we've sort of taken a little route towards moving into nonprofit world
status.
so that we can start
right
to a little bit more formally offer good education and start to bring that into the club without changing sort of our culture.
Yeah.
But when new people come in, just making beer making a little more approachable for the new user. Also, we're trying to fill the gap, I think, where you at Surf in the homebrew club would have seen that new brewer. And then there's this whole conversation happening right there in the brew club and learning there. So I think Vibe's kind of filling that gap a little bit as best we can because people do know Vibe's around.
Yes.
And then, trying to formalize our structure. We applied to be a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. And the idea around that was to just have some sort of nonprofit brewing area long after all of us sort of move on.
Correct,
just some sort of structure where we can continue to build the homebrew community and be a place for homebrewers to learn.
And a place where you can get some good data from
you can read all day long.
You read all day long,
but when you're in a meeting and you hear this little thing and you're like, what? I've never done that before. Check pH. What are you talking about?
Or what's this
RO
mean?
water. What are you talking about?
Water? What's water chemistry?
That doesn't happen unless you're really getting together with people. So
you get a better, you get real data, right? Not just a read. And like how you interpreted what you read.
Yeah, and it is so different when you're in person, right? So we just came out of our year and a half, and we did plenty of Zooms. And I honestly felt like that was just
so many Zooms.
So many Zooms.
That was surviving.
That was survive. That was keeping everyone
mode,
needed a way to stay in touch with our community, and there not a shit ton of learning, but we did get to hear from a bunch of professional homebrewers. Some of our
good people logging.
Some great events. Some great events.
Yeah, it's a great event.
So it's kind of a flip side, but also something pretty easy to keep going for the community.
All right, we're gonna put Jeff on the spot. Jeff,
we are.
Spit. Your mic's
Yeah.
on. No, you're good.
You can bring it closer if you want. Do you want to hear yourself?
Did you guys talk about the barrel program?
that will be the next one.
That'll be the next one.
I think that's what really got me hooked in the club.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I think the barrels were at the Butler Brothers up there in Moore Park. We went up there and filled them the first time.
Kirk,
And that kind of got me hooked on it.
Barrel Project. You were involved in some of the first barrel. Yeah, look at we do have some. Kirk's been around a little while
too. Those were the first
too.
couple barrels we
Yep.
we brought into surf
The
and
car
filled them a couple
winery,
times.
the car winery beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
wine. Yeah. So
That's kind of really what got me hooked.
make sure that
Yeah.
mic is that on.
Doesn't
switch
sound
on?
live to me. Yeah.
It doesn't sound hot. There you go.
Oh,
there we
there
go.
you go.
There we go.
Now you can hear me.
Fuck,
Yeah,
there. I was like,
Andy can
I
adjust
keep
the volume.
turning the gain up over here, and it's like, sorry, Mixmaster Mike over here is learning. This is, sorry. There's dual purposes here. We're trying to learn how to use the mixer. Sorry, guys. Sorry
We need
for
to hire-
running
we need to
YouTube.
The
hire
barrel
some
aged
guy.
one would
I
be
should hire a sound
all
guy.
set
Oh,
up.
weird. Where's Ivan? Ivan, enter the chat.
Ivan.
Sorry.
Oh, he's
Blow
behind
up
us, yeah.
We'll blow up the. That's for another pod. So.
Yeah.
No, but no. What do you think? What do we? Yeah, just your whole vibe of what's the vibe of vibe? What's as a I would say a more active, long-term member of Vibe. What do you think?
Thank you.
I think not having a homebrew shop hurt us a lot as far as our club membership
Yeah.
goes, because we don't get a lot of people in now. Doing events is actually what helps us out.
Yes.
Like surfing
Gets us
suds.
exposure.
Actually, we talk about
Yeah.
that one. I do want to touch on the other non-home brew events for a minute, but
Yeah,
yeah.
because that's how like Israel and his
Israel
brother
and-
we met him. There's a few other people that
Yeah.
have coming in just
Pure
because
exposure.
of exposure coming in, tasting this, and a lot of our beers are way better than the professionals.
Well, actually, so that's
It's
maybe,
true, yeah.
maybe. I mean, not to close on it, but I would like a discussion because there's something I noticed with as we got invited to Ventura Beer Experience.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome event. But that's also like a few hundred people. Homebrew Fest, obviously, it's a unique
Yes.
experience. Like that's a
Homebrewers for
singular,
homebrewers, yeah.
unreplicatable, other than like an NHC Homebrew Con AHA thing. But when we go to real festivals, real public events, I'm never gonna get tired of this.
Yeah.
I can speak to that.
Totally agree.
The commercial brewers. Sorry, guys, blow you up for a minute. They will bring maybe 2 or 3 beers.
Because that's the standard.
That's the standard.
You go to these
strongest and
festivals
lightest.
for
Strongest
free.
and lightest, right?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, the
Strongest and
whole
lightest.
commercial
Yeah.
beer festival thing is a bit of a challenge for the brewers because you truly need to show up. It's your brand.
Yeah.
You're developing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
The festivals come and the organizers come to you as commercial breweries and they want you to come, but of course. This is all on you.
Yeah.
You're bringing free beer. You're donating
Right,
your time. You're
yeah.
doing all this, and if you don't show up, your competitors are there, so you have to go.
Right,
And typically speaking, you've been to all these commercial breweries. There tends to be like maybe 2 beers on tap.
Yes, yes.
And
Sorry,
usually and people are lining up at your event, and they're asking. Typically, somebody's saying, what's your strongest, what's your biggest beer, strongest beer, and then other people are just, what's your lightest beer.
Yeah.
So you tend to bring a light and a
I
bigger
hear
beer.
you. Okay.
California Beer Festival, actually.
California
here
Beer
in
Festival,
Ventura
exactly.
Downtown Ventura,
was was the first pure commercial beer festival I think Vibe attended, and,
Yep.
and it was at a time when that was sort of gray.
It was a
whether or
little
not
too
we
loosey-
actually
it was
could-
very
loosey-goosey.
It was
And-
real
and-
gray.
and so we showed up to this
Yeah.
beer festival, which was all commercial breweries, and then all of a sudden back in this corner is Vibe. And we had our beer
We were-
bar set up from the CHA
Yeah.
Southern California Homebrew Festival with a dozen beers on tap.
We were at the beginning of that festival. We were 40 people deep in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went out and count. Stone had 25 and Firestone had 15.
And they're just
so
stacked up, and everybody's going,
Kinda
where
felt-
can I
yeah.
get this beer? Where you guys open up? Where's your brewery? And
The
we're like,
whole
you can't get
day.
this. Can't buy this.
Can't buy this.
I think it was
Hashtag, yeah.
Hashtag can't buy this.
So people are lining up, and it's always been a great experience. And again, no, I'm throwing no shade on the commercial guys.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
there.
Well, they
before,
can't.
so
Well,
but
they
that's not what
can't.
you
They
do.
can't hang with that because that's not commercially viable, right? We
Right.
are not. We are by definition not commercially viable, right? But the thing is, what's cool is I would hope commercial breweries, don't throw shit. I mean, sometimes people post dumb shit about home brewers, stuff. But it's like there's a lot of not only employees but a lot of knowledge and stuff that comes out of it and new things that come out of home brewing. And yeah, we're gonna roll 30 kegs deep.
Yep.
Get ready.
We are.
Bring it.
And there
right?
might be a couple stinkers, but
Yeah.
there's some stinkers in the commercial brewery
There's
too.
just
you know,
There
there's
is.
lots of-
yeah.
Just around
I'm
the
sure what they're
corner, yeah.
bringing is fine, but we're gonna bring 20, 30 barrel,
Well,
whatever.
We got
All volunteer.
we-
yeah, all
volunteer. No one's
donated
getting
yeah,
paid.
no one's getting paid for this
Exactly.
shit.
We actually
Yeah.
have a new policy in the club where
Oh, it's a new policy.
Yes,
Yes.
it started at the last fest. We test every
You
beer
need to
before we
scrutinize
put
it.
it.
You shouldn't
Drink
put them
them
on
all.
tap.
Yeah, we test everything, and there's been a few we've untapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important.
So
Yeah, getting to that point, I think, is even.
well, that's
getting
the
in part,
best. That's
'cause
the
we
best
didn't
part of
used
that's
to,
the best
yeah.
part of having so many. Hey, I'll brew shit beer, and I'll dump it.
Yep.
But you have to know that, learn from that. And that's the hobby, right?
Yep.
We're past the point of just drink whatever, right?
Bring
we have
anything.
depth.
Yeah,
We're just
have
fill
depth.
a tap.
whatever taps
Yeah.
plays, right? We're past that, right? We want to there's an interesting thing, and we'll get done here because we're going to do something else in a minute. But there's an interesting concept of we have this bar, we added 7 taps, and then we added 7 more taps. It's like, do we add 7 more taps, or maybe we should just stop and just only have those many beers?
We will
Because
continue that debate for as long as
we
it's
will.
Beer
That is
Club.
the late night. The late night. That'll be. Oh yeah. Let me give us 5 hours.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that later.
we always end up with more taps.
We always need
Right.
more
Oh,
taps.
yeah,
We
side
always need more
taps and cold
so,
boxes
So
and-
it's an interesting idea of what's too many beers, because you also want to provide quality, right? I think we always
Yes.
provide quality.
Yes.
We provide variety, 100%.
and opportunity,
And
for the
opportunity
home brewers
for a
to
homebrewer
be
to
able
say,
to
hey, I made this
participate
jacked
in
up,
that.
yuzu fruit saison, like,
Yeah.
hey, who tries it, right? So,
It's
all right.
delicious.
Cool. Well, we'll close it out, and we're gonna re-up, get some more beers. We're gonna do Cuvée de Vibe in a minute, but
Nice.
throw it around the hole. So, Andy, thanks guys for showing up. There'll be another video on this channel in a minute. Doug.
So I'm embarrassed because I'm actually out of a beer right now because I
Oh.
did want to do a toast. I wanted to do a toast to Dan and Monica Baker and
Yes.
and
hold
Evan
on, I can
Wade
get out
and
of
all
frame.
those
We gotta
guys.
do a pour.
I'll
We
get
should.
out of frame.
We
I'll get out
should
of frame.
because my
Absolutely.
beer's empty because I
Yes.
feel like we need to do a toast to those guys.
We do
They were not
indeed.
able to make it, and
Sitting on the cooler. No,
There's some beers in that cooler for fact.
I found one. I got one.
we can
And a
edit.
glass
We can
for-
edit
and a
this.
glass for
Origin
Doug.
coffee.
And a glass for Doug real quick. Andy, are you again going to make us drink a coffee beer?
Yes.
Opening coffee here. It's fine.
Okay.
I like
We can
coffee
edit-
I
beer.
just grabbed a beer.
We can fix this in
cares?
editing.
We can fix everything in post. All right, so coffee stout, masthead.
So we're just going to keep refilming the toast, different beers.
Well, and of course, red solo cups are entirely appropriate.
Little toast. Not on the mics. Not on the mics. Yeah, it's fine. I don't care. All right, cool. So,
Thank you.
boom. Cool, guys. No?
One more.
There's actually 4 of us.
4 of us.
Yes.
Shit. I can't count.
That's all right.
She's the one that gets the glass.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well,
All right,
All right,
guys.
right back to the
Dan.
beginning. I definitely wanted to propose
Monica,
a toast
yep.
to the true initial seed
Bakers.
founders,
Yes.
Dan and Monica Baker and Evan White and Emily Thompson and those that were there at the very beginning.
Yeah, there.
Cheers, Dan.
guys.
Cheers.
And you, Doug.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
for hosting. I think that's the thing.
Yes.
Another thing I want to maybe we'll
Sure.
end on is the fact that having the club be
Yummy.
at a
Actually,
brewery,
very good.
public place,
Yes.
Appreciate that.
consistently being there. And Doug and I were I'm still on the board of CHA. Doug is a very influential
Officer.
person in the CHA, and we worked really hard on 2 things. One was legalizing our event,
Right.
but then when you joined the board, you were like, we want to have the ability to have home brewers meet at public facilities, at licensed facilities.
So
And
fantastic.
that license, that's what we're doing. We're dead to rights. We're good. And I think that is a huge deal for people that want to join homebrewing. It's a very convenient, safe space, and it's already in a brewery.
We actually influenced legislation.
We
I think
we
so
made
too.
it happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
excellent. Well, we got dogs running around.
Dogs right around.
Andy, Doug, thank you. Georgia, what do you want to see? Anything? You want to say anything?
Till the next podcast.
Till the
we'll
next
see you
pod.
Again. Yes.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
All right. Hey,
Cheers.
thank you, everyone.
Thank
Peace.
you.
Perfect. Cut it.
I gotta go check on the map.
Cool. Go for it.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect, guys. That was awesome.
Right on. I thought so. It was fun.
turn it off. So it's not
Oh no, there's no switch. I'll just turn the mic. I'll just turn the volume down.
Okay.
Good.
Good.
That was awesome.
Appreciate it.
That was fucking perfect.
Thought so too.
Yeah, I think I got some good angles too.
Good.
That was perfect.
Yes, I love that you did that.
Yeah, because we're kind of sitting.